Thank you, everyone, for joining. And it's a pleasure to have you all. We were waiting for our speakers to join us already, and they've joined us. We have, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Davis Hejiro. I'm a reporter with the New Times. I'll be hosting this space with my colleague, Tessie Caven, and she's joining us in a minute. She's having some technical issues from her side. But allow me to introduce our speakers tonight. Let me start with Minister Joseph Sengimana, Rwanda's Minister of Education. Minister, can you hear me?
Good evening, I can hear you.
Great. We are pleased and
Thank you.
thank you. Nathalie Munyamenda, CEO of Kepler. Can you hear me?
I can, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Dorcas Rutunda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Dorcas is the head of expansion at ITM, a hiring firm. Thank you, everyone. And without further ado, allow me to begin with introducing our topic tonight. Our topic is savvy generation through education. And as AI continues to shape the global landscape, many countries are looking for ways to equip the next generation with the skills they need to thrive in a digital and tech driven world. So, here in Rwanda, in our context, like many other African countries, so the challenge now is to see one of the challenges is to ensure that our education systems prepare students for a future where AI can play a significant role across different sectors, and if sectors I mean healthcare sector, agriculture, entertainment. So in this space, we want to explore some of the key questions like use AI and digital literacy in ways that are relevant to our unique context in Rwanda. So questions like what role should teachers, schools, and government play in fostering an AI-driven generation? Those are the topics, the questions we're going to be discussing. And without further ado, allow me to start with Minister Joseph. What step great AI and digital literacy into the national curriculum and the primary and secondary schools?
Well, thank you very much for, first of all, for hosting this conversation, and secondly, for inviting me to be part of this conversation. The one thing you talk about teaching and preparing people for the usage of AI. And so we should probably be looking at it both from the usage perspective and then from the teaching perspective. And just to set some context, our national curriculum provides for ICT both as a subject as well as a tool for teaching and learning in all subjects at all levels. And that is for primary and secondary. So you asked the question. So it actively promotes digital literacy, again at all levels, both for teachers and students. For the teachers primarily, we have a training program that has been actually underway for a couple of years now, where teachers are trained
Minister, I think we are losing you.
that this work has already been going. And I would add that we are currently revising our courses. Will be and also we will be looking at how do we
Minister,
use
can
AI.
you hear me?
Uh, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
It's breaking and cutting off, and we've literally not listened to the beginning of your points.
Okay, apologies. I can hear you perfectly.
Yes, no problem. If you don't mind, you can con- start over with the beginning.
I see. Okay, let me know if you can hear me so that I don't
Yes,
repeat
yes, we
again.
can hear you now.
All right. No, I had indicated that to set the context, that our national curriculum does provide for ICT both as a subject or a course, as well as and learning in all subjects at all levels. So in this context, we actually do have programs that train teachers in the use of ICT in delivering their courses, and that's based on. And to date, we have trained over 20,000 teachers in primary sector and over 25,000 teachers in secondary. And so that is just to the context of the framework and the platform that exists today in training teachers in the courses themselves, but also in using ICT to teach and improve learning outcome. So this year we are reviewing our curriculum when it comes to ICT and technology, and incorporating AI specifically as we prepare for the following school year, only for teaching, but also for the use of AI, particularly in assisting teachers and students. The student that I'm talking about as students that are struggling, for example, we can have tutoring bots that can help them in improving what they've learned, or even exercising and training as they prepare for their lessons. So there is great potential in the use of AI in improving learning in general. So let me stop there, and I hope you were able to hear me this time around, and I can elaborate that as you wish.
Thank you, Minister. We're hearing you loud and clear this time, and it's great points you made here, saying AI has great potential in improving education, and we will get back to you as the conversation unfolds. But allow me to welcome my colleague Tessie Caven. She's here. Tessie, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Davis. Thank you very much, and very good evening to all of us. Thank you so much for joining. Allow me to just bring in Natalie. Natalie, how would you say that AI can be taught in a way that is accessible to all students and inclusive? I'm talking about people who are in rural areas, disadvantaged backgrounds. How would we teach AI in an inclusive way?
Okay, thank you. I think that's a question that the minister can elaborate on a bit more when he comes back. I just wanted to, if one of the things I discovered when we are talking about AI is oftentimes people do not understand what we mean by AI, and we take AI as to just be clear on what we're discussing, as well as maybe talking also about generative AI. So basically, AI is the technology that allows you to classify, to generate, and perform tasks. Anything from analysis to speech would be creating. ChatGPT, for example, is a generative AI. You'd be creating content, and so with that in mind, the question becomes, how do you improve access? Because with education, of course, education is a public good, and the number one component, of course, is accessibility. And so there is no a quick answer to this, because for sure Rwanda, like many other countries across the world, including countries where there's the home to some of the most advanced AI labs like the US, there is a challenge of accessibility. And I also want to just bring up that AI, like all forms of technology prior, are both a tool, and I'll talk about a little bit later, the fact that we have young people who have born in a generation where there is AI embedded in how they do things, and therefore you cannot teach AI. They live within a system that is already using AI. And so the question is, how do we create that system for students in rural areas, public schools, so that they can also use AI as part of how they learn already, embedded.
Hey, Natalie, can you hear me? Can you hear Natalie?
I think we've lost Natalie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, I don't know where I left off, but I was saying that it's the million-dollar question that all countries are trying to respond to. How do you improve accessibility? And so the few words I can start off with is, if the government of Rwanda has done very well on setting the foundations around, broadband that is everywhere in the country, a plan to put devices in every school, a plan to make internet accessible. We saw great examples during the pandemic, and that needs to come back on how there's projects from the Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Education on this. Rwanda is piloting a lot of very interesting projects. I think there's one with public high schools with Huawei. And there's a lot of interesting projects happening, and we can talk a little bit more about that to see how we can integrate AI and other technologies to improve, for example, in high schools where there are no labs. Can we have 3D, someone who's teaching in one place, but it's going to many high schools so that we can also fill the gap of the type of teachers that we need. But in terms of accessibility, once you've laid the foundation, which the government has been working significantly on for the last 20 years, the question is, how do you improve the teaching? How do you empower the teacher to be able to help students, because many of these students are coming from households where there are no devices, there are no internet, and the parents are not able to support them in this. And so they're not yet digital natives. And that's what we need to work towards. So that's a long-winded answer. I would say accessibility, the foundations have been set, and we have to work on two things. Primarily is the empowerment of teachers, and getting, just working through it and creating content that allows students to interact with this type of technology to improve their learning outcomes, as the minister was mentioning.
Natalie, thank you very much for your insights. And maybe before we move on to the next question, I'd just like to ask the minister to weigh in on this in terms of accessibility. So what would you have to add on top of what Natalie has just said?
Thank you very much. I think Natalie did outline that there is a project that the Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Education are currently implementing, which is intending to connect schools. And so our aim is that by December, the majority of schools, if not all of them, would have been connected to internet. And so, and I think that addresses this accessibility question. Also, schools have a smart classroom, which allows for teachers to use those classrooms, expand on the textbooks and the curriculum they currently have. So that element, I think, it's being already in place. We still have long ways to go to accommodate that. However, there is a plan that's being executed and put in place for that. I think one thing that we could really expand on as we continue this conversation, to me, the benefit or the potential that comes with AI is in its usage. How do we use it to actually, in the context of school, improve learning outcome? So we do have quite a lot of data within the Ministry of Education that we can build AI systems that would allow us to actually help both the teachers and the learners. And I think that's where we really need to focus. In order to do this, we have the data we can build the systems on top of. We now need to have the expertise and enough a critical mass of experts to actually build those models. We cannot import these models. The AI models are really as good as the data they built on top of. And so we can't import those models. We need to actually build what they already have. And I think that's an area which we need to focus on, that would actually speak not only to the basic education, primary and secondary, but also looking in tertiary education, because that's where we'll find the expertise to actually build this model. So let me pause for now on that, and let me know if I can expand on my explanation.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you, Natalie, for the great points you mentioned. Natalie hinted on the fact that the question is how to improve access and how to empower the teacher who is helping these students. And this brings me to the question I'd like to ask Dorcas. So we've had some previous conversations on AI and culture. The second session was looking into the question whether the technology is here to take our jobs or help us do it better. But to the very, very beginning, Dorcas, in your opinion, please tell us how important is early exposure to AI concepts important in shaping future AI professionals. So we're talking about the young people who are still in secondary, both primary and secondary. Please take over. Dorcas, can you hear me? Yeah, as Dorcas tries to join, I'd like to tell everyone who is listening feedback. If you have any intervention, please feel free to use our comment section. It's open, and when time allows us, and we will try to make look it on the into these questions so that we can answer them. If you want your question to be answered by certain person, one of the speakers, either the minister Natalie or Dorcas, please feel free to send in your questions, send in your feedback. Great. Dorcas, can you now hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Sorry, I think I got lost halfway through your question.
Yes. No, I'm happy to repeat it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the question is, you tell us, sorry, you tell us in your opinion how important it is to expose AI concepts to young people, both in primary or secondary schools, shaping them to become future AI professionals. Is it clear?
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you for the question. I think just like any other skill, the earlier the better. The earlier that you are exposed, the earlier that you get to know, make mistakes, and perfect or master the skill. So I would say, obviously, as you go lower in age and capacity, of course, you need to customize. So if we're teaching 10-year-olds become AI engineers, but we can teach them basic ways of integrating AI tools and AI knowledge and skills into their day to day at their level. Because just like when you're trying to prepare your child to be a better speaker, you expose them to where they will have to speak. Same way, if you want your child to be ready in the AI space or revolution, you need to be able to start exposing them slowly as they grow, both in education or in other spaces that are not necessarily at school, where they should see AI as a way of, as just a part of life. So not something that once they are done with university and they're going to the workplace, it would be the very first time they would have to apply it in their work. I hope I've covered that part.
Yes. Thank you, Dorcas. And just to tell people we are following them, we are seeing your questions. I see there is a question from Inzuibi Tabo. One is a Twitter user. So his question, he directed it to the minister. He says, it seems there will be a focus on the use of AI in our schools. My question is, are there any plans to introduce AI development into the curriculum? Minister, as you think about this, or if you're ready, you can also respond to him. But in the meantime, I would love to bring in Natalie on a different note. So in our country in Rwanda, with a focus on we have a focus on inclusive education. How can AI be taught in a way that is accessible to all students, including those in rural areas or from disadvantaged backgrounds? Natalie, I know you've hinted about it in your first remarks, but if you can elaborate more on this.
Okay, so I think it's important to maybe demystify AI. The minister, in his current role and also in his previous role, had a lot of experience, so maybe he can also provide us some information there. AI, we see it as early as your Gmail, sending some of your emails. Interact with AI all day in a number of our tools on our phones, on our smartphones. What we was asked is a very good question. How do we train young people as young as, and how to create the correct prompt as early as possible, and understanding how generative AIs or how these models are created. So basically teaching young people how to create their own technology using AI. And so if I can come back to teaching for a few minutes, what we need to understand is, I think there was there's some misunderstanding that somehow AI will replace teachers. And so the example I gave of a teacher to 1,000 classrooms for example, some lab work to show 3D printing or something that they don't have in other schools. Teachers will not be replaced. AI is really helping teachers improve their lesson planning. It's helping teachers assess faster. It's giving teachers the data on who's behind. And within Tanzania a few days ago, and I was speaking to a Ugandan colleague who during during COVID, sorry, they had brought in a system in their school where they had they were watching videos and then assessments, doing quizzes, and they had to teach the AI about attention span, for example. So how long should the video be, and when does it stop, and what tests, what quiz or what questions need to be asked and answered at which part. And the way that they were able to assess, because the biggest issue, of course, is if it's fully online, you want to make sure that students go through the entire video and are learning. So how do you assess that they're learning? Which is the pedagogy. Like, how do you assess that? They basically taught the AI to where students need to pause and take questions. And so the student had to watch the entire video, answer all the questions to be able to finish that class. Or
Natalie, can you hear me?
sorry, did I lose
Yeah,
you?
yeah, we lost you for a minute.
Okay. I was saying that AI can support teachers to be able to improve the learning outcomes of their students. So where do you put tests? How do you make sure students are actually watching the content? How do you, for example, when you're doing at the high school level, creating a lesson plan, finding the right case studies, finding the right example, it will really help improve the experience of teachers so that they can really focus on teaching and the human interaction that's required in learning. So that is the importance and the I would say the case for AI. The issue, and I think the question that was asked is a good one. How do we make sure that we are actually building the models, as the minister mentioned earlier? How do we make sure that we are giving it, teaching it in the right way, or teaching students young people how to generate the right prompts so that they can get the right information? And how do we, of course, continue to have the human interaction in teaching and learning? This part will not be erased, but we have an opportunity to, as a forward-thinking country, to fix things that use to pilot and then to expand things that are actually working. For me, we have to focus on foundational literacy, numeracy, logic, and metacognition, which is thinking about how we think, to improve the way that the learning outcomes. If we improve foundational learning, the next step is how do we teach young people to understand how AI or how technology is built so that they can do that for themselves. We are in a generation where young people are, at least in the city of Kigali, some schools, we see that the digital natives, they interact with technology already, they interact with AI all day. So it's important for them to understand this and also be able to develop it themselves. In the rural areas, I think the exposure as early as possible is the first way to do it. It's a very long-winded answer, and I don't have a specific example. I think the minister will provide you that. But going as quickly as possible to empower teachers so that students are exposed as early as possible is what we need to do. But teachers will continue to be the main foundation of learning, the main way that young people continue to learn.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for the points shared. Improving foundational learning for the teachers and students, as well as teaching the young people on how to use the technology. We'll get back to you, Natalie, but for now, allow me to bring in the minister once again on one of the comments and the questions one of the questions rather that was shared in the comment section. Minister, if I can repeat the question to you. He asked that it seems there will be a focus on the use of AI in our schools. My question is, are there any plans to introduce AI development into the curriculum? Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an important question. I think let me build on what Nathalie just shared. When we talk about artificial intelligence, particularly when we're looking at primary and secondary, the focus really is to increase awareness, and exposure and the use of AI-based solutions. And so we want to make sure that both, not just in Kigali Learner, is able to use a tutor bot to learn more or to get more explanation on the course that was taught at school. And we can build this in a way that's used in the smart classroom, for example, at school, or even on the phone. It could even be a feature phones. We could build a way in which you can access this and be able to to have an aid or a support that you won't otherwise have. And this is particularly relevant when you have areas where you have overcrowdedness. If you have a teacher with 60 or over 60 students in a classroom, those learners can benefit from these tutor bots that I'm talking about. And so how do we make sure that we actually creating those solutions for them? As I pointed out earlier, we need to build these bots using the data that is relevant to us. We cannot import this; it has to be actually built. And so, to me, that's where the opportunity really lies. However, the student who's going to use this, they need to be aware of this. They need to understand the limitations of this of the tool or the technology, and and that's going to help them, as well as the teachers as they prepare and actually make sure that students are aware of this kind of support that they can get. This is the focus where we're going to be looking at. Now, to come back to the question that was asked, the university, there will be specific majors that are focused on the AI development. We already have some universities currently that are teaching AI specifically. Carnegie Mellon University, Africa, for example, here in Rwanda, has a major in AI, engineering and AI. And we will expand this as we move along to even have specific majors in the bachelor degree space that are focusing on AI. And those would be the ones that would actually be doing a lot of development of these solutions that I'm referring to. But one of the things that we really need to be aware of that is that beside AI development, there is AI usage. So AI is really going to be in every aspect of things we do, in our banking, in the way we communicate, in the services we're getting from various vendors. AI is going to be part and parcel to those systems. So it behooves that we learn and understand what we are dealing with. What is AI? I think Natalie referred to the different set of different kinds of AI. In schools, for example, we've been doing adaptive AI for a long time. Generative AI is the new thing. It's the one that's becoming more and more popular in the last year and a half to 2 years or so. And I think that we need to sort of understand these systems and be able to question and interrogate them, so that we make sure that the system we're using is actually relevant to our reality and our context. And I think that's what we're going to have. Yes, the development is going to be done with a special training bit at the university level, and to some extent, we will bring this in secondary education to start learning on how to incorporate AIs in what we're doing there. But understanding how we use it, how we take advantage of these features is going to be key. So let me pause there for now, and let me know if I can expand on the response I provided. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much. I'm picking quite a lot from you, from Natalie. Thank you so much. You just mentioned or emphasized that we cannot import the models. We need to build them. And then you've also mentioned about, besides development, the usage aspect is also important. And as I go to Dorcas, just chew on this question on how to responsibly use AI in education. I'm going to ask that question to you and to Natalie. But before that, let me go to Dorcas. Dorcas, from a hiring perspective, please tell me, what kind of AI skills will you be looking for, especially for many who are listening in, maybe they're students, they're preparing for the job market. From a hiring perspective, what kind of AI skills would you be looking for? Yes, we can hear you, Dorcas, loud and clear.
Perfect. So, in terms of AI skills, there are different types of skills that are needed at this point. I think just from this conversation, I hope that people that are fast to grasp opportunities can already identify the different gaps that are currently there in education, in at policy level, in government. Now, on private sector, there's so much more, but I think I'll only speak on three key skills, and this is actually from some of the research that was done by by the Harvard Business Review, and there are like 3 main skills that you need to have, at least in the AI era. And the first one is prompt engineering, or just the capacity to guide generative AI to create instructions. And I think of all the types of AI, of artificial intelligence that we have out there, generative AI is the most popular right now, and the most easy to use, if I may. So anyone with the capacity to utilize or to maximize the use of generative AI, to be able to prompt the right instructions that gives the right outputs. That is one skill that is really out there needed. You can see everyone is using ChatGPT, but some people, for example, don't even know how to edit it a little bit and remove all the repetitions and all those words that are really not relevant. So the capacity to prompt, to create the good prompts is one of the main skills. The second skill is one of the skills that actually have been talked about for a while. This hasn't, the AI, if I can say, the AI part of the skills that the World Economic Forum had talked about, that are one of the skills that will be very relevant in the future. And this is data analysis. And data analysis, described very briefly, is just the ability to collect, organize, and interpret data in a way that it will be useful. So data is like AI's oxygen. If you want to use any form of artificial intelligence, it feeds on data, it feeds on different information, but the information is so all over the place that the person with the capacity to be able to say this information can be used to this end and this can be used to that industry, right now, as we're talking about AI. And the final one, which is actually quite something, is continuous learning. At some point, this was not considered a skill, but now it is, because the capacity to be agile enough, to be flexible enough, to pivot, to learn new things, to become a new person. We are getting into an era where back then careers used to last 20 years. They went down to 10 years, and now we're down to 5 years, even somehow to 2 years. We get to a point where when you're hiring and you look at someone who's been at the same job for 10 plus years, it's almost like a red flag, and you're wondering, why is this person not evolving? Why are they not being exposed to different other places? So the capacity to continuously learn is one of the skills that will be looked at. And how do you detect that skill, or how do you harness that skill, is by continuously learning but proving it. So it's maybe those small courses, those small degrees, those different projects that you're part of, things that you volunteer in, showing that you have a mind that is flexible enough to grasp different information from different areas and be able to do that. And now, in terms of how to use AI for good, I always refer to it as a tool. So a tool is only as good or as bad as the user. Make sure that people are have good intentions, or people have the right the right approach to things. And the best way to ensure that, because again, you cannot control people, is through policies, is the right restrictions, not restricting innovation, but still are making sure that innovation is made for the better good, for the greater good, for the common good. So the only way to make sure that AI is used for good is through the right policies, is through the right guidances and channels. And now that we are exposing, let's say, young children, and now that this technology is going to be propagated among different groups of people all over, we need to make sure that it's followed by the right policies. This is not something that anyone can just join in and create whatever. I think we've seen what we call responsible AI, where you make sure that you've put certain restriction, even if it's generative AI. The data that you feed it is data that has been filtered through at least a very specific baseline, to make sure that anyone who will even try to use it for the wrong reasons will still not be able to do that. So I think that's a much broader question, but it has to do with society in general. But at policy level, it's very possible to at least create that one layer of filtering to make sure that we limit the risks to a certain degree. Thank you.
Dorcas, thank you very much. We create prompts, data analysis, continuous learning. The future belongs agile. That's how it goes. And you've also mentioned policy, and so allow me to bring in Minister and also Natalie, if you can follow immediately after, on the question of responsible use of AI.
Thank you very much. I think when we're talking about responsible use of AI, being generated, and what are the guidelines that are being provided for that exercise. I think one has to just take a look at the go to Google and Google anything, you'll have 100 different answers, and a lot of them contradicting each other. So, what is the truth, right? What is the truth in the response that you're getting? This gets even worse when you incorporate AI, the deep fake. So we need to be very careful with this technology because it has great potential to do good as it has great potential to do harm. And I think Doc has pointed to the fact that we need some level of policies, guidelines that need to be established around the use or the generating of AI-based systems and the use of these systems. And so I think that's a conversation we need to have as a society and be able to determine what level of guidance we want to impose or we want to put out jeopardizing creativity within this space. So that's a conversation that needs to be had. When it comes to the use of this in schools, I think I go back again to the potential of using this. Let me give you an example. You could take a simple test, which will give you a few questions in mathematics, and at the end of it, because these questions are embedded within an AI system, you are provided a list of topics that you need to study in the sequence of those topics that would actually address some of the gaps you already have. And so when we use this kind of system, it would help teachers and students to actually have a organized and personalized learning. And so we are able to do that. But this is because we would have developed the systems themselves based on the relevant data to our situation, and we would have used them responsibly. And now you can rely on the fact that the people system and self control. But by and large, I think we have learned over the years that guidance, policy, rules are really needed when you're dealing with a society or things that impact a society at the high level. And then we are not only exposed to the system that will be built in Rwanda, we're exposed to the system worldwide. And so the awareness that we were talking about, especially for young people and teachers and parents, I think we need to double down on that so that they're able to distinguish the use of the AI and the ones that it's set up to mislead and misguide. So that's what I would say with regard to the to use responsibly. Yes, we want to advise people and encourage people to use this responsibly, but we need some sort of policy guidelines to be put in place to ensure that actually.
Thank you very much, Minister. Natalie?
Yes, I agree with the minister. I think there needs to be, of course, some policies. We've seen, European countries and others take the lead on this, and I think that Rwanda also has been working on an AI policy. And so I'm not sure if there is some more details in education, but I think we're working on it. I want to even take a further step to what the minister was saying to say, AI ability, for example, for students who have dyslexia and other challenges, in a crowded classroom, AI will help, teachers make a quick assessment and say, this person is struggling here. And so they could focus, and focus on how to help students meet them where they are, which is really important. So there's such a vast potential of AI. I think, just going back to the question on how do you make sure that young people, what's real, what's fake, what's good, and what's bad, and the answer comes down to that's not something technology can fix. We have to continue to, and I think that's why I saw that in the comments, Johnny shared an article about how the founders of AI do not let their children play with iPads and expose them to nature and expose them to books. That for me comes down to what I talked about earlier around metacognition. So we have to make sure that we're not losing the art of thinking. And so thinking is developed by not just saying, okay, we're going to teach students how to type and teach them to access and leave them to get all their answers from Google or any other bot or any other things. We have to continue to guide and to help students make good decisions around thinking. So teaching students to think critically think is not a skill that's going to die out, because we need it, especially now during this time where we're becoming over reliant on technology. But, I have conversations with my 8-year-old daughter all the time around the algorithms. I recently realized on TikTok I'm only been showing videos around perfumes, and that's because I spend a lot of seconds. I watch the entire video, and therefore the algorithm knows that this is something I'm interested in. Someone has taught the algorithm, because it's about generating money around that. If this person is watching it, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a full video, a minute, they're interested in this. Let's find more content like this. So I have a discussion very often with my daughter on how these algorithms work, and I try to use a language that she could understand, and why she's seeing a certain type of video. And by the way, she noticed it herself, which means young children, 8, 9, 7, 10, are using it for music. They're using it for entertainment. They're using it because they're interested in different topics and they want to learn more. We have to find a way to be a bit more, I would say, to guide them a bit more. We have to take our parenting and our stewardship as educators quite seriously, because we have to make sure that we're continuing to make sure that they're thinking, because that's the only response to an AI that is going to destroy the world, as some people fear. And that's part of why we also have to make legislation and policy. It's just not going to do itself. But again, as the minister said, it's first of all, we're trying to anticipate a problem that doesn't exist, when we should be working on a problem that we have now, which is how do we provide access, as wide access to these tools that help our students improve their learning. For me, that's step one. And then we continue to fight against cybercrime, and we continue to do better policy. But parents and educators have to work on, policymakers have to help us on this aspect, the government. And but for me, part of the problem is Africans are not creating our own, whether it's the technology or the algorithms or the content, and the fact that we're not thinking enough through. We also consuming the same, what we used to call it as fake media. We're also consuming everything that's given to us, and so there has to be teaching young people to develop this so that we can counter what is fake with what is real. I don't know. That's a long-winded answer, but what I mean by that is the first step for me is actually having the tools to improve the learning outcomes. That's what we need to focus on. And at the same time, the responsible AI and the fighting against cybercrime. But right now, we have the big problem of accessibility.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Minister. Natalie, there's a point you just hinted on. Your relation, how she keeps finding what TikTok keeps suggesting you, depending on what you view most, what you like most. I'd like to ask you briefly, as a parent, how do you think parents should navigate or go around, exposing their kids to AI, but also at the same time being mindful, because AI has both sides. It's a coin with two sides. It has a positive side and a negative side. So I would like to hear your view on the point of how parents should go around exposing AI, because we're talking about young kids. For example, your 8-year-old. 'Cause sometimes they're not with you. You will give them a phone and they will just go in the living room or their rooms, and you never know what they're going to do. But just to be brief, bring in your aspects as a parent and your experience. Thank you.
Okay, so you're right. A lot of us are falling into the trap of giving our phones to our children. They are some of us have take our children to schools where they do a lot on their iPads, Google Classroom or any other online classroom. They have access to their iPad or whatever tool is provided. And so the simple answer to that is you have to pay attention, and you have to be aware. Young, particularly those who are exposed. With some sort of digital tools, who have parents who have provided those tools, which is a minority, not a majority. So I'm always focused on the majority. How can we improve the experience of the majority? But for many people who are even on this Twitter space, our children have a lot of privilege, and therefore they have exposure to these type of tools. And are the digital natives. We are not digital natives. They have interacted with technology and algorithms, and that's learning or taking prompts from them. They have been exposed to that from birth, and therefore for them it's not about learning IT in a book. They are living. They are creating. They're building models without knowing. So the question is, us who are the parents, we need to keep up, and we need to know what things are happening. We need to know what is the good AI that we should expose them, what are the good programs, what are the good tools, and that's how quickly this can go into a very bad direction. I spend a lot of time on weekends with my kids trying to figure out what programs should I actually, not saying no to everything, but saying what programs can they use that are fun, that will help them learn how to use the technology, that will help them learn how to do math and science and other things, and is also fun. So of course content is a huge issue for parents, but it is our responsibility, the same way that it's a responsibility of the government to come up with a good policy, a responsible AI policy, and the Ministry of Education for teaching and learning. It's our responsibility as parents to come up with a good policy at home on what they should be listening to and watching, in the same way that our parents did it with book. Control everything, but what we can control, we should, because they are much more native than us. They can go around a lot of the protections that we put. So you have to constantly be ahead of your kids.
Thank you, Natalie. Great. Allow me to recognize the Minister of Thank you for joining us. Mathilde Mukanawana, Ambassador of the Republic of Rwanda to the United States of America. Thank you for joining us. We also have among our listeners, yes, the President of the Senate, Rwandan Parliament, and former member of the East African Legislative Assembly, Kalinda. Thank you for joining us. And the conversation is continuing. Allow me to bring in Dorcas. Dorcas, we are coming to an end of our conversation. The time we had set is coming near, but please briefly talk to us. Tell us from the perspective of hiring. You're giving us the view of the hiring sector, what skills they need, what is needed on the job market. So here, please tell us, how important are AI skills becoming in the job market, both in Rwanda and globally? Thank you.
Um, thank you, Davis. I think I'm just gonna quickly just give like tips of someone who's wondering how can I make the most out of this AI surge and AI trend. So as you can see that everyone is learning. This is something that is relatively new, and not even people that have years of experience in the workplace are new to this concept of artificial intelligence. So this is an opportunity, more of a balancing opportunity where you can go and learn as much as you can about AI and be able to bring that as an added value. We have so many, I'll talk maybe globally. I think there was a report by PwC that was talking about the fact that the jobs that are AI related have now increased 3.5 times from just last year. So there, and then 25 of those jobs have an increase of salary compared to any other job on the same level. So there's so many opportunities that you can grab just by saying that, oh, I have this AI skill, or I know this about AI that you guys don't know. A lot of companies are using different technologies. They've been using that for a while, and now they are all asking themselves, how can we integrate AI into the
So we'll try to go through some of the questions some of our listeners had sent in the previous space. And so briefly, we were almost about the closure of our space, and but allow us for a few minutes to go through some of the questions to have to just answer them. So, Tessie, are you back? Can you hear me?
Yes, Davis, I can hear you. And if the minister can hear me, maybe I can direct this question to you. It's by Johnny. Johnny asks, I have a question for the minister. Silicon Valley parents opt out of schools with tech. Is there something they know that we don't? And then this next question, Minister, if I can just ask both of them at the same time. Honorable Minister, why hasn't the University of Rwanda introduced specialized bachelor's or master's programs in artificial intelligence, such as machine learning, computer vision, and natural language processing? Are there any plans to incorporate these fields in the curriculum? Minister, if you heard my questions, kindly take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, the first question, can you repeat that? I didn't catch it.
Sure, let me repeat that. I have a question. Silicon Valley parents opt out of schools with technology. Is there something they know that we don't? That's the question.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not sure I would entirely agree with that statement. I think what you find out is that the Silicon Valley parents control the use of technology that their children engage with. They do not they don't take them to schools without technology. On the contrary, they take the schools that these executives take their kids to are very, very much technology driven. However, they control the way in which their children consume the data, and they control the way in which they engage with technology. So I think that's just a clarification that needs to be made around that. I think that they are aware of the dangers of unrestricted use of technology, and also the danger of a misinformation that's available in cyberspace, and so they control that. And I think as responsible parents, it is imperative that parents guide their children in use of technology. And as a matter of fact, schools also do play a role on raising awareness and guiding kids in how to use technology. So that would be my response to the first question. The second question around the majors and the kind of training on studies that are available at the University of Rwanda. Like any other university, I think there is always constant need to revisit, to relook at what's being offered, what's not being offered, and adjust. I think what we can say is that the University of Rwanda, like any other university, needs to do that periodically. I think the rate of change has increased significantly in the last 20, 30 years. That universities are having to do this revision and adjustment at a much faster pace than they did before. And the University of Rwanda just needs to get to the same of cadence of review and adjustment as other universities are doing. So I think that would be my response to the second question.
Thank you, Minister. And as we try to respond to some of the questions in our comment section, Natalie, I would love to send this in your corner with it's a question from Innocent Kawenga. It asks, with regards to continuous learning, are there any plans for Rwandan colleges and universities to offer online courses to professionals interested in AI and who are ready to pay for those courses?
Well, I think it's a good challenge for all of us to do so. I actually think that no one should wait to take those courses. They're available actually free of charge on many platforms. We, for example, at Kepler offer to our alumni and to our staff a lot of that through LinkedIn Learning, and they can access it. And what we notice is actually once you make it available, people don't do it. They don't do it without if you don't encourage them or incentivize them to. So I would say that already exists, and I would argue that what we need to develop is the type of certifications that allow us to teach professionals in our environment, in our ecosystem, how to develop the how to develop the whether it's the how to improve prompting, to develop the AI itself, so that they are ahead of the curve, which is what it will be required in over the next 10 years. So I would say that that's what's needed more. But that in terms of the information and the courses, they're available actually already for free from a lot of the platforms that exist.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And of course, as we wind up, because this was for the sake of concluding our space and responding to some of the important questions we had in the comment section, I sent an invitation to the Minister of ICT in case you have an intervention. You, madam, are welcome to share with us something or any comment about our topic if you're listening us and it's possible. So in the meantime, please allow me most of the questions have been directed to the minister. Minister, you'll bear with us and allow us to ask you some of these questions. But this will be the last question, if nothing else continues. It's a question that says, what is the Ministry of Education doing to create opportunities for the private sector to leverage the data in education sector the ministry holds to develop AI tools that can improve education? Are there frameworks or initiatives in place that the ministry has put to attract private sector in creating AI-powered innovative tools that will keep education relevant to the changing job market and prepare students for the future of AI? It's a bit long, Minister. Is it clear though?
It is. It is. And I think that I would agree that there is a great opportunity here to partner with the private sector to leverage the data we have. Of course, that needs to be done responsibly because we have a lot of private data that needs to be protected. But there is quite a lot that we could do in this space. We currently do not have the platform that's being referred to, but it's something that we want to put in place, and we would be looking for partners to work with in leveraging the data we have within the guidelines, of course. So look for some announcement around that in the near future, but currently we do not.
Thank you so much, Minister. Allow me to thank everyone who has tuned in. Joseph, you really have said you want to share something, and I know you've been following our spaces since they started. I want to give you the chance to share your input, but I'd love to also request you to be as brief as you can so that we can conclude today's session. Joseph? Joseph is one of the listeners who has really been following our spaces since this series about AI
Hi.
began.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, Joseph, we
I
can hear you.
apologize. Sorry, I was in mute. Maybe I should have a generative AI to tell me I was in mute going forward. Good evening, Mr. Minister and the panel. I am absolutely impressed and acknowledge the intelligence of the panel and generally of the professional panel of Rwanda. I work for a company called Cefe. It was formerly Gazprom, and we are a stock market and in power and oil and different commodities. I'm an African. I was born in Sierra Leone, and I do tend to participate in a lot of African generated ideas here in the UK. Mr. Minister and Natalie, I have followed your comments very closely, and I am extremely happy, and I'm wonderfully impressed. With your comments, but also I follow Rwanda development extremely closely. You wouldn't believe, seriously. In fact, here they call me the what you call it, default ambassador for Rwanda, right? But in terms of AI for Africa generally, and probably and definitely Rwanda, Mr. Minister, can I ask you this question? You did mention I think you and Natalie actually did hit on the point of the data that's collected for AI. In my industry, that data is gold. I mean, we have a saying here, which is rubbish in, rubbish out. If you put in wrong data, you get wrong answers or analysis to questions. How, given the cultural basis of Rwanda and the you know, of course, in Africa in general, there's a disparity between rich and poor, even in Europe and in general. How would you, how would the ministry and probably private sector, especially like, you know, Natalie's sector, how can you going forward confirm that data input into AI would be quality enough, responsible enough to generate proper analysis, especially for children in the schools that you in the schools and the level of the classrooms that you hope to teach AI.
Thank you, Joseph. That's a very good question. For the system which we would be deploying in our schools, we would be responsible for ensuring that the data that these systems are built upon are actually of quality, true, and safe for kids. So that we control, that we can ensure that it actually is so. I think where we struggle is things outside of our control, and so we would be able to check and verify any system, any anything that's deployed in schools to ensure that the quality is there, the relevance is there, and the safety is there. And so that's what we can do in anything we deploy in our schools. With regard to our own data, so we have system in place to ensure that first of all we're protecting the privacy of that data and integrity of it. But we also ensure that the way in which that set of data is being used is responsible for that. Um, and I know we're coming to a close, so let me also point to the fact that we mentioned the need for policy earlier in our discussion, and there is some policy in place, and we actually are privileged to have my colleague, Minister of ICT and Innovation, here with us. If the organizers permit, maybe we can ensure that she does speak to that component. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Joseph, for your question as well. And of course, we would love to hear from Minister Paulus, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tessie and Davis. I hope everyone can hear me before I continue.
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. One, let me start by thanking you for this conversation. I think it's not just only important, but also timely, given that we as a government, and I know you kept coming back to it, we've already put in place a national AI policy. And what is very interesting about this conversation is that when you read the policy, skills, education make up probably more than 60% of what the policy is looking at. And so we have a pillar on infrastructure. We're talking about compute capacity. We have one on data infrastructure, and probably responds to the question that just got asked by Joseph. We also have one around figuring out use cases that we can implement. And what the approach we're taking is, how can government lead by doing? How can we implement AI enabled use cases that allow us to then put in place the right regulatory frameworks that will ensure that we put in place the necessary safeguards to really counter some of the risks that come with deploying AI. And so, and then the other component is really, how do we support the private sector to also adopt different AI use cases? And I think the main thing here is around opening up data, looking at the quality of data that is being used, and allowing for everyone to be able to play around with this data. Now, I want to come back to something. When we launched the national AI policy more than a year ago, we also put in place what we call ethical guidelines. And I will share the link for those of you, but you can also find it on the rural website as well as the ministry's website. And these ones are meant to ensure that the way we deploy and develop AI-enabled solutions, doing it in a way that is ethical. We're also very lucky that by the time we were putting in place the national AI policy, we already had adopted the data protection and privacy law that puts in place mechanisms on how we collect, process, share, personal data. And coming back to the question that Joseph was asking around the data that we input into AI models, which is a very critical aspect, is really ensuring what's the quality of that data. Because without the right data, then you're probably not going to generate the right insights as you go along. And so some schools of thought will push for the fact that you need to provide open source AI models that allow for people to look at what is the kind of data that is being used, what are the insights, how do we query this, but also how do we democratize access to some of these models. And so, just to touch on some of the things that Minister Joseph also spoke about, for institutions to be able to share it. And now we're a government that has digitized most of our government services for over 20 years. It means we have a lot of data. A lot of this data is at rest and is not being used. And so we've been asking a question, how do we use that data? One, to inform the policies we make as policymakers, as government institutions, to inform the implementation. But at the same time, how do we open it up, whether it's for the research community, the students, the private sector? And to do that, what is needed is a national data sharing framework, which we're already putting in place. And once that is out, it will enable institutions, even including Mineduc, to be able to open up some of their data to the public and allow for this to be done. Now, I want to end on probably 2 points. One of them is, uh, as we were thinking I believe it was in March this year, when we were doing a national robotics competition, we also did an AI challenge. We brought together different secondary schools. We told them, build AI solutions. Let's look at them. What was very interesting was the fact that many of the students were building AI solutions that were more around improving learning outcomes, and it was a lot around personalized learning. And so you could see that they're already using AI to solve for problems that are relevant to even themselves. And so we asked our question, how do we integrate AI into the curriculum? And the first step now has been to work with Mineduc and assess first the technical capacity of teachers, because we need to start with the teachers, training them, making sure they have the skills, the tools, and the curriculum that they can deliver within the classroom. For now, what we've done is to work around having AI clubs. These are still in a very few, in just a handful of schools. And so the idea is that over time, as we can expand the infrastructure, we can have more schools that have both robotics and AI clubs and expose their students to this. And hopefully, in the near future, we can mainstream some of these AI programs into the curriculum. I think Natalie mentioned it earlier. The foundational skill will always be around numeracy and literacy. For many of these AI skills, you want to make sure you have a solid math foundation. So how do we ensure that is happening at the very early levels from kindergarten, primary school? And once they start to get exposed to some of the AI concepts, it's really, you already have a solid foundation when it comes to mathematics. And so these are some of the steps. It's really the steps in the right direction. And over time, I think finding the right partners, working together, will really allow us to see how we can really leverage AI, not just for education, but for the different sectors of the economy. So I'll just pause there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for shedding light on different topics we had talked about earlier. But now that we got we are with us here, we are really coming to an end of our conversation. But allow me to ask you one more question. One, it has something to do with one of the concerns that Natalie mentioned earlier, and it's also a question that one of our listeners also shared. He asked, Rwanda's education system should not rely on foreign trained AI models. The current frontier LLM models are very biased and will not align with Rwanda's values. These are not the values we want our kids to learn. What is Rwanda government doing to invest in home trained models? If you can respond to this, and then we conclude our space. Thank you, Minister.
Sure, Davis, thank you. So maybe the first thing is we've been working with different companies to train with the Kinyarwanda LLM model. We actually have some very local we have, I think, about 3 local companies that are already working on that. One of them is Muganda. There are a number of them, and we can share some of the work that they're doing. But basically, they've been working to ensure that we have a Kinyarwanda large language model. And I remember when we were testing to figure out what is its ability, the accuracy levels, we started at maybe 20% in the model being able to understand some of the Kinyarwanda words and then analyze them correctly. Today we are at over 70%. And how is that done? It's really collecting different Kinyarwanda words from the public domain. And one of the things we've been discussing with some of the companies, including OpenAI, is how do we work with different institutions, including the institutions that have the culture and language within their purview, to get as much Kinyarwanda data sets and words that can be input into these models to allow for accuracy to be at least up to 100%, because then you'll be sure that anyone can then be able to use the language and contextualize it to our very needs. The reason we're doing this, we're already looking at a couple of use cases where we wanted to build an AI chatbot for our community health workers, and most of them speak Kinyarwanda. And the idea is that if you're able to do voice to text, the model should be able to understand the words and be able to translate and give them the right feedback. And recently we saw that OpenAI launched voice to voice, which makes it even very interesting for even anyone who would want to use some of these models for any applications that they're interested in. So this is already work in progress. We have accuracy that is over 76%, hoping that the more we feed it with the right data sets, we'll be able to build a model that is that fully understands Kenya, that is fully built on our Kinyarwanda language and can be used for the multiple use cases. So I think, as Minister Joseph said earlier, look out for this. Once we have been able to test it and be comfortable with what's coming out, or the outcomes of this model, we'll be able to publicize it for many of the developer community to leverage it and use it in the different applications that they're developing. But I do agree, if we're going to be developers of this technology, then that's the skill we're meant to build, not just the skill to consume and use these models. But again, you start by using, learning how it works, and then being able to build something that is specific to yourself.
Thank you so much, Paula. Actually, I was speaking, I didn't know I was mute. Thank you so much, Mr. Paula, for making time and joining us this evening. So this really brings us to the end of our conversation, and the conversation began at exactly 7 p.m. We had a technical issue and it dropped off, but I'm glad we were able to conclude and respond to some of the questions our listeners had sent in. So allow me to thank you so much, Minister of Education Joseph Sengimana, for making time to join us and honoring invitation. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Minister Paula, thank you also for joining us and